to Uncontrollable, the podcast where we break the stigma, get loud, and get real about youth mental health. Truth is that having mental health struggles isn't weird, unnatural, or something to be ashamed of. It means you're human. Mental health affects us all, directly or indirectly. You're not alone.
We're here to remind you that some things in life are out of your control, and that's okay. Sometimes you just have to embrace the chaos. Mental health doesn't have to be scary or heavy all the time. It can also be a very fun and relatable topic. This podcast is packed with stories, tools, and fresh ways to handle all the stuff that feels, well, uncontrollable.
Hi, I'm Madison Mays.
And I'm Sophia Lee.
Brought to you by Cloudcast Media.
Our goal is to eliminate the mystery and myths regarding mental health and to answer your most intriguing questions.
Let's have some fun and explore the uncontrollable. Today we're here with Chris Tronson. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist and OCD advocate. We're also joined by Kristen from Minding Your Mind, an organization dedicated to reducing stigma surrounding mental health and educating the youth. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Good. Happy to be here.
Okay, we're glad.
Great, yeah. So, Kristen, can you please tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to Minding Mind?
Yeah. That's a big question. Mainly because, I've been telling my story for so many years. I've been with Minding Your Mind for going on 8-9 years now. And what the position is, I'm a young adult speaker, right? And it's my full-time job. I travel all over the country. And what I do is I talk to kids as young as 3rd grade all the way up to parents, community members, really whoever will listen. And what I do is I share my story in a very real and authentic way that is hopefully, well, I know for a fact it is inspiring, right? I know that because of the amount of kids or just people in general that will come up to me and they'll say to me yo, you told my story. And my story in a nutshell is very much a lot of people's. I always like to say pain cannot be gauged, right? So if any of you guys shared any pain that you had been through, I would treat it the same as my own because we all carry pain very differently. But as a child, I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I was the type of person that very much wore masks. I was an athlete. I want to be a student. I was friends with everybody, very much like a chameleon. And deep down, I really struggled with low self-esteem. I struggled with, not wanting to let secrets out into the open, not wanting people to look at me like I was different. And, even though I was that kid that did the most with everything that she possibly could, I was also a kid that lived 2 different lives. And my mom struggled with alcoholism and anorexia. My dad worked a lot. My brothers were often either supporting me or doing their own thing. And, I lived that way for a really long time. And as, sort of things move forward, my mom unfortunately died by suicide. I picked up some unhealthy coping mechanisms like self-harm and substance use and isolation. But, I'm very proud to say that through a tremendous amount of help and support and taking risks, right? Getting vulnerable and honest and open and trying again and again and again. I'm 27 years old and I have 10 years of sobriety under my belt and still go to therapy every other week. So, the journey continues, but that's me in a, elevator pitch, so to speak.
Thank you. I love that story. You're in that too.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing all of that. I know that it can be very difficult for people even to say I had depression once. So thank you so much for being open about it and showing people that hey, it's okay and we do get better.
We all have our own stories.
Mm-hmm.
So starting, have either of you ever been in a situation where it felt impossible to get out of or to improve your mental health, where you ever felt kind of stuck?
Yeah, even though I'm a licensed therapist, it's a full circle moment for me because the reason I became a therapist is because of my own struggles with mental health. And I would say the two that come to mind from what you talk about is both my experience with obsessive compulsive disorder, my experience with major depressive disorder. For me, having obsessive compulsive disorder, I think one of the toughest things is because it's cyclical, like a cycle, your every day feels the same. You wake up and it almost feels like you're doing the same things. And a lot of my OCD was surrounding my health. So I was really, really afraid about what I ate or who I was around or what I was doing, because I always was afraid of either coming across chemicals or eating something or getting sick. And so it got to a point where I wasn't eating. And I dropped, at the time, I was about 65 pounds lighter than I am now. So I was, I'm 6'1" and I was like 140, which is not a good amount of weight. But it wasn't to look a certain way. It was more so just a fear of eating certain foods. I was afraid of throw up or throwing up or getting sick or eating something that made me sick. And so, as much as I wanted to eat more and be healthy and try to get back into being an athlete, it didn't matter what I did. I just seemed so adverse to eating because of those fears. And it wasn't until you were asking, how did I get out of that situation? It wasn't really until understanding that, hey, this is OCD, this is emetophobia, this is what you're going through, and got specific tools. And then sadly, after I got better, I thought everything was going to be rainbows and unicorns and I was going to be the happiest kid on the block. But for me, after I got better and went on social media and started seeing all the people I used to be friends with, like thriving and living their lives and traveling, yet I had been housebound for 3 years and in treatment for another 3 years. And so I became extremely depressed, just feeling behind my peers. And unfortunately, I didn't handle it well and just felt, often just instead of trying to get back out there and do great things, I found myself just really focusing on the negative. And I spent about a year just in bed, not doing much and not seeing family and friends. So once again, the way I got out of that is acceptance of like, I can't go back in time and fix what happened to me, but getting on medication at the time temporarily, but also therapy, and really getting back out there and living a fulfilled life and realizing that I can't change what happened to me in the past, but every day I have the autonomy to make a different decision and to really thrive. And that's what had me full circle and become a therapist. So the good news is you can get better. I think just seeing and getting a specialist, but also getting support from people that love you and are helpful.
Yeah, I kind of love how you talked about like what like that it's not necessarily like there's that language of like, oh, like there's something wrong with you, right? So like therefore it's only me. Like for me, like I felt like since there was like a label, it made me feel like, okay, like if this is diagnosable, that means that there is a treatment plan. Like it was like, okay, like I'm not the only one, like I'm not the only one that, can't stop using substances every day. Like I'm not the only one that like, no matter how badly, like I want to stop self-harming, or no matter how badly, like I want to reach out for help, like I'm not the only one that's experienced that. And like you had me remembering, even during like the pandemic, man, like, I mean, what, like I probably had like 5 years of sobriety under my belt, and I was alone and I lived by myself. And, like I'm somebody that attends like frequent 12-step meetings and likes to go to therapy in person. And I thrive. I'm one of those people that like gets energy from being around others. Like I very much like being around people. So like that was a really, really difficult time in my life. And I was in a relationship that wasn't the healthiest. And that was like my only contact. And like, I felt like all over again, I was like, oh my gosh, like all of these supports in my life are sort of being taken away from me. And I had a very hard time with change. And like, what's really interesting is like that pivot, although very much difficult, it was like instead of like doing in-person stuff, it was like doing Zoom stuff. It was, okay, like I can't get to the gym, but like I'm going to go on walks. Or, okay, like I can't see my therapist in person, but like I'm going to try to find the gratitude of like, even though like I'm in my bed all day, like at least I have the session at 11 o'clock. Like it was like, what helped me like get through that time was like, I mean, gosh, like a lot of it felt like white knuckling it, but also, looking at like the small wins rather than like I did a million things today. It was like, okay, like I went to therapy today. Okay, like, I got my groceries today and I'm going to make myself a meal. Like sometimes going back to square one isn't necessarily like a defeat or a failure. Like there's like some beauty in surrender that like I don't need to be doing this like all by myself in secret. Like I can just take it one step at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are all really good points, and I love that both of you guys ended on like the positives. Like, this is how I actually got through it. Just because it was really hard right then, just because it felt kind of impossible right then, like I was still able to move through it and keep going on. Because I mean, like, time really will keep going on no matter what you do, and it's better to be crawling towards something than to be just stuck, frozen, not knowing what to do.
I agree, and I like how you guys say, like, it's really temporary. Like, it's really temporary. As long as you have that push, that little bit of motivation that you have, like, okay, yeah, I'm not feeling like my best self, but it's really not that hard just to click on this Zoom. Let me click this link and really see what it's about. So it's those little things, because I feel like a lot of people expect for everything to change as soon as maybe they go to rehab, or they go to therapy. Like, all your solutions don't get solved in one day. Yeah. It's that slow build up, that slow, small advancements you get. So what I would say, what advice would you give to people? Like, how do you get out of those negative thought patterns that might always be hindering you?
I feel like I'm like a huge advocate of like, you are who you surround yourself with, which is like really difficult, like to be able to change your environment, especially if like you don't have the ways and means to do so. Like, I feel like for me, like even recently, like I was journaling about like the values that I have today, right? Like I value honesty, I value trust, I value laughter, I value love. And like I was like journaling about these things. And then I started looking at the people in my life to like look at what they valued. And I like looked at all of my friends and a bunch of my family and like all these people, and like they're so close to me because they value the same things that I do, right? So it's like, I know for me, like if I'm doing something or thinking something that like makes me feel guilty or makes me feel shameful or like makes me feel like I need to isolate, it's not because like I'm a bad person. It's because I might be going against like my value system. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like for a long time, like I only surrounded myself with people that use substances, or I only surrounded myself with people that like had the same trauma that I had experienced, right? Because like that felt comfortable. Like it was like, oh, these people have all been through the same things that I've been through. And like that in and of itself made me feel less alone. However, these people were not in therapy. Like they weren't taking care of themselves. Like they were actively using or actively self-harming. So it was like we were like this little cohort, and like it was like that shared trauma, right? And really until like I went into treatment, like I did about 5 months of treatment the second time around when I was 17 years old, where like I didn't have my phone. I couldn't call these people. I couldn't text these people. Like I made new relationships and friendships like in treatment, and like looked back at those old relationships, and like even though I miss them and I was like, I love these people and they've been through so much and they deserve like a chance to like the chance that I have. Like somebody told me a long time ago, they're like, if you try to pull somebody up, like, and they're not willing to go up with you, like they'll pull you down. And like that's so hard because like I'm such an empathetic person. Like I just like love people, like I want to do the most, but like I am not a therapist like Chris. You know what I mean? So like that's like not my job. So I don't know, that was like a long-winded answer, but I just feel like getting out of those patterns, like community is like so huge for me to like hold me accountable for like, okay, like this is what you're thinking, this is what you're feeling. Let's like look towards more of like a solution-oriented answer, or even just like let me like listen to you.
Right. Okay, I guess you kind of like being okay with being uncomfortable, because you say you kind of had to let go of those people that wasn't necessarily the best people to be, like not if they were bad people, but they didn't have the best habits, and like ultimately wanting to better yourself.
Totally.
Like, And Chris, what would you say on getting out?
Yeah, I think for OCD, one of the most difficult things is you're getting bombarded daily, multiple times an hour, with these unwanted thoughts, and they're very, very, like the opposite of who you are as a person. They're typically negative, they're unwanted, it's hard to even talk about them. And the mistake that I made, and what most people make, is we take an extreme approach. Either we spend a lot of time like analyzing those thoughts, trying to answer them and discover the origin, or we go the other extreme of trying to distract ourselves and ignore. And I was doing both of that. So when I came to treatment, what it was really learning is, hey, can you accept the presence of these thoughts? So when I was talking a little bit ago about like health fears, right? Well, researching and going online, I'm not a doctor, right? I'm a mental health professional now, but at the time I wasn't even that. So me trying to research different health diseases and stuff, that wasn't helpful. It just spiraled me even worse. If anybody's watching this and ever gone on WebMD, you always think you're dying, so that didn't help. But then trying to pretend like I didn't have thoughts and distract myself with TV and music and technology, as soon as all that stuff turned out, I'd be laying in bed for hours thinking about it. So it was allowing myself to have these thoughts, yet do nothing about them. And that feels so difficult with OCD because it feels irresponsible and these thoughts feel urgent. But it was really practicing allowing the presence of those thoughts to be there and kind of be like, hey, what do you have for me today, OCD? Oh, you think I'm going to have this? Well, you could be right. You could be wrong. Let's see. But making sure that I shifted my behavior and took an opposite approach. So starting to leave my house, go around people, eating food, getting back into the things I enjoyed. With depression, it was a little bit different. I had a lot of negative thoughts about my self-worth. I was having thoughts like everybody in my high school is now thriving and I haven't even gone to college yet because of my mental health, or nobody really cares about me, or nobody's calling me, I have no friends. But it was recognizing self-compassion. Well, of course I didn't have friends. I've spent the last 6 years housebound and in treatment. So I would have the utmost empathy for somebody who's gone through that and not expect them to be making friends when they're alone in their room. So that doesn't mean this is going to be my life forever. And so what really helped heal is challenging those thoughts and recognizing that people do love and care for me. I was just in a difficult situation that had me isolate, and I started to take some actions. I got into martial arts, volunteering at an animal shelter, took tennis, took Spanish, eventually got a job and started making friends. And it really proved to me that, hey, it was my situation that was causing most of the problems and my mental health. But now that I'm in a better place, I am making those connections. So treatment gives you a lot of tools and a lot of strategies. And that's why I always encourage people to find a mental health professional if you're at that point that you really need it. It was super helpful for my life and why I'm here today.
And kind of adding on to what both of you guys said, like with the OCD aspects, there's a lot of like getting stuck in a cycle of negative thoughts. So it's all internal, but then there can also be external factors. Like I'm surrounding myself by the same exact people who are maybe perpetuating these behaviors. So, kind of what sort of, well, I guess we already asked for advice on what they would give, but, so I guess, we can talk more about
I think you mean like the coping mechanism. I guess you kind of did talk about it. Yeah, your preferred coping mechanisms, like the best ways to get out of like these habits that people have, like these thoughts, or like do you have any activities or like reading? Like, what's your preferred coping mechanisms?
Yeah, I feel like my preferred coping mechanisms, like it varies for like what's going on in my life. So like I know for me, like what works for me might not work for you, right? So like just because like, somebody with, I know for me, like grounding techniques are really helpful when I feel like that I'm in a place where like I'm very hypersensitive, right? Or like something gets at me that like I can't quite let go of. So like I'll do like the square breathing where I'll breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. I'll do the 5 senses thing where it's like 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, and then you go down the list on like physically grounding yourself to be like in this moment, where like if like I'm having a flashback. But like when it comes to like my habitual, like the things that I do for like my overall wellness, because that's like a little bit different. Like for me, like I know I will have a more productive week if I go to like 2 to 3 12-step meetings, right? I know for me, I'll feel a little bit better about myself if I go to the grocery store instead of DoorDash, right? And like make myself a meal that's like very esteem building for me. going to the gym, very helpful for like releasing, like at least for me, like the gym is really good for my anxiety because like I need to be physically present if I'm sprinting on the treadmill, right? Or like lifting really heavy weight. But for somebody else, like the gym might be like the opposite of what they need if they're like experiencing like moderate to mild like levels of anxiety. So I mean, those are just like a few of the things that I do. But I mean, honestly, like I'm sure any of you three have experienced where like a positive coping skill like gets stale and it like just doesn't like hit the same way that it used to. And like recently a friend of mine, like she volunteers at a farm and she's like, I volunteer on this farm every week on Sundays. Like you should come. And like I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. And like most Sundays we'll go to the farm and like hang out. And it's like a way for me to like connect with her, connect with the animals, get outside of myself in a healthy way. And it's like cool. Like I just like hung out with baby goats for like an hour. Like that was fantastic. And it's like that something like that is really helpful for me to like mix it up without doing anything too drastic. It's just for me, it's about like having a routine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do like the question that you guys were asking about, we were talking about internal, like, negative thought patterns. And then, Kristen was talking about those external changes. And I think that you both hit on something, Sophia and Madison, is that it is sort of a holistic treatment because cognitive behavioral therapy was great for how to address those thoughts. But if I was only taking care of my thoughts, but like Kristen was saying, your lifestyle is still the same. That's why a lot of individuals that do go get treatment for substance use disorder, they go back home. And if they still have the same group of friends and they're in the same area and connecting with the same people, they often go back to that behavior. And I know for me, I was doing so well, but really I had to change my behaviors because I was housebound and all I was doing to leave the house was to go to treatment and come back. So if I would have gotten better mentally, but then continued to just sit in my house all day, nothing would have changed. So for me, it was sort of like a life overhaul. I asked myself like, hey, I got to fill my time. Like, what things do I really like? And I like martial arts. And so that was why I picked that. But also I found that the people in my life started to be the kind of people I wanted to be around because we had similar interests. So I made a friend through tennis. I made friends through my job, etc. So I think if anybody's watching this, it may sound exhausting, but it also can be a really fun experience to say, hey, let me reevaluate my life. And I know that prior to my mental health, like you, Kristen, I was around people that weren't making the best choices, right? Whether it was substance use, not really like valuing education or family. And so when I had the opportunity to go and get treatment for myself, I also wanted to better myself in general outside of OCD and BDD and depression. And so some of the things was just finding those friends that were sympathetic to my to my situation and wanted to see better for me. So I think individual therapy and group therapy to really help with maybe the specific compulsive behaviors or the specific behaviors you have in the disorder, but a general life overhaul so that your lifestyle is much more values aligned is really important too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Just connecting how thoughts, feelings, behaviors, that's very CBT, but then also
yes,
because if you change your thoughts but you don't change your actions, like you're gonna have to go back one way or the other.
You're right, you won't even get nowhere. So it's kind of finding that balance, that gut ratio, kind of focusing on the broader aspect. Yeah. I love that.
And also, wait, hold on, I'm sorry. Wait, Madison, do you know what time it is?
No, Sophia, wait, what time is it?
Wait, what time is it?
Oh, I think it's game time.
Okay, so yeah, we have a little game segment in the middle of our shows just to lighten the mood. Would you like to play a game with us?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm always game.
Okay. Ooh, this game segment, we haven't done it before, but it's Would You Rather.
Ooh.
Yes.
Oh. So, yes. So, to start off, okay. So, just, would you rather be able to control time, but every time you use your ability, your memory is lost from the time the power is used, or be able to read minds, but you temporarily lose your vision with each mind you read? So what's more important, your memory or your vision?
Do you ever get your memory back, or it's done so, like it's gone?
Like it's like Jason Bourne, right? Or is it not?
I don't even know who that is.
You got amnesia.
Oh no, yeah. From that moment you lost that moment you use your time power, it's gone. Like from that exact moment. So like, oh, say you make a mistake, like, oh wow, I did something embarrassing. I'm gonna go back in time. You go back, but you don't ever remember going back.
Like you don't remember the future. Like if you go back in time, you don't know what happens next.
So there's a movie called Memento, and the guy loses his mind, like memories. So he gets tattoos of certain phrases to remember, and he's like all tatted up. So I don't have any tattoos. I think I'd pick that one and lose my memory, but always get like some kind of writing down. Because I've never wanted to be able to read minds, because you will think somebody is your bestie, and then you're gonna walk up in their house and they're gonna be like, "Why is Chris wearing that? It looks stupid." And I'm like, "Nope, I don't need to know all that information. My feelings are gonna be hurt." So I'll do the time travel.
It's very much TMI. I don't think anybody wants to hear my thoughts. I don't want to hear anybody else's thoughts. Like that is between you, yourself, and whatever it is that's up there. I pick choice number one.
Same.
Yeah. Ooh, this is a good one. Would you rather be stuck in a room for a whole week with somebody that you hate, or be stuck in a room for a whole week with a person that talks nonstop?
Like it's going and going and going and going and going. It's endless.
I feel like
So
somebody that I hate. I feel like at least maybe, and maybe this is the optimist in me, but like maybe we would be able to find some sort of common ground. And if that's not the case, then like we'll just sit in silence for a week and just tough it out.
I was going to say, as a therapist, I have to say sit in the room with someone you hate, because just like Kristen said, my goal would be, can we get to a point that we at least like repair that relationship? I was thinking about it. I don't really hate anybody in my real life. I mean, sure, you like don't like certain people in politics or celebrities, or people annoy you, but there's nobody I hate in my life. But if there was, I would hope to sit in that room and like at least get to a place where we can vibe and see each other and maybe dab it up and at least be pleasant. But like you said, Kristen, if we can't, then I'm just going to meditate and deep breathe for the rest of the week.
As a therapist, you can't listen to nobody talk your ear off that long.
Well, I love hearing people talk, and I genuinely love people. And so when my clients talk to me, I really enjoy it. I think, though, 7 days a week, nonstop, to the point that I could barely sleep because the person's keeping me up talking, I think I'd lose it. So I'm going to have to say, trying to repair a relationship with someone I don't like.
So would you rather visit every country at least once, or one country that you love every year?
I'll jump in because I got my answer. I would love to visit every country. Both my grandparents didn't have a lot of money, but they made it work. They traveled a lot. They traveled not in style, but they were able to travel. And I just remember as a kid looking at all their pictures of them going everywhere. And although I've been to places like Mazatlan in Mexico, or places in Norway and England, and there's been some beautiful places. I think the opportunity to meet different people, eat different foods, cultures, faith backgrounds, languages, that would be amazing if I could travel all the time. I would love that one.
100%. I have a friend that like she takes all of her like anything that she isn't spending on like life, right? Like rent and food and whatever, like all of it goes to travel. And like I look at her pictures and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I also love to travel, and I feel like I wouldn't want to see the same place every single year. Like I would love to like broaden my horizons and, you know, be able to like have all of those experiences for sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
Is there a dream country though that you guys?
Oh, that's true. That's a good one.
I mean, I will say a trip that I'm really looking forward to is like in October, like me and my fiance are going to Italy. I'm really excited.
Nice.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we're going for a wedding, which is like the best part. So it's like we're doing like wedding stuff for one of his like best friends, and then we're gonna like travel all around. So
You get to get dressed up.
I know. I'm so excited.
For me, 100% Greece. I'm half Greek, half Norwegian. I've been to Norway, so I want to go to Greece next year. So that would be the dream country, is to go to Greece. And the food is the best food in the world, so I'm so excited.
It's so good.
Yes.
Where do you want to go?
Actually, I don't want to stay living in America. So I want to move to Spain, but I really want to travel all over.
I hear Spain is beautiful.
Wow. I've
How
always
for you, Madison? Where do you want to go?
I've always wanted to visit Brazil, but
Ooh,
yeah,
that's
that's what
another
because
good
I just love I just like the culture because they say there's just up and downs with it, but that's with everywhere,
Yeah.
and I feel like there's so much culture from it. And I remember watching a movie Rio. Have you guys seen Rio? With the
Oh
big
yeah.
burger? Yep. Ever since I seen it, I started looking into it. I was like, oh, I have to go there.
And they have good dancing.
Yeah,
They do have great dancing.
right, and the place is so large.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's
Right
so
across the street from my office, there's a Brazilian restaurant, and the woman that owns it is straight from Brazil. She moved here, and I always ask her about her country, and she always tells me stories, and the food is so good. So she always plays Brazilian music, and Portuguese is tough because I speak some Spanish, but Portuguese is not the same. So I would love to go down there though. It seems amazing.
Oh, they're in Japan. There's so many people in San Diego that have been to Japan, and they're always like, "Oh yeah,
Yes,
Japan's
so
amazing."
many.
There's so many. I'm like, okay, I gotta see what the hype is all about.
Same.
Japanese,
That's on my list.
at least Portuguese, like, low-key, I speak Spanish, and I can read Portuguese pretty well. But
Wow.
I can't understand it.
You can't understand Portuguese?
No, not even
Oh.
a little. It sounds Russian to me. Like,
Okay. Last one. So would you rather be able to fly, but every time you land, you kind of puke or like throw up a little bit, or you have super speed, but you break a bone every time you use your power?
Fly for sure. But
really?
that's also because like I don't like just like what was it? You throw up a little bit? Like just like a
Yeah.
little bit?
Yeah,
Oh,
it might
that is
depend.
true.
It might depend on how the further the distance, the more of you. So it really.
Okay.
Oh, no. Yeah, so it really depends.
yeah.
I feel like if I could fly, I just feel like all my problems would be gone. I just feel like it would be okay if I could just like fly to the beach, fly to wherever I wanted to go. Like that would be cool. I feel like the risk is worth the reward.
Mm.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, so obviously I had a lot of anxiety and phobia around throwing up, but as a therapist and as somebody that's gone through the treatment, I can't let that stop me, right? Like I'm in a good place with that now, and although nobody enjoys throwing up, I'm not at a place where I fear it like I once did. And breaking bones, I've never broken a bone. Let me knock on some wood. Yeah, that just sounds scary. And every time, I'm like, after a while of doing super speed, I'm going to be in a cast. What?
It could be a tiny bone. Like there's bones in your ear. You might
Yeah,
pop.
but then you can go down.
Oh.
But I only have 206 trips of speed because then all my bones will be broken. So at least with flying, I'm going to do the exposure therapy of throwing up,
Yeah, right.
bring a pocket toothbrush so that I could brush my teeth afterwards. But yeah, the flying. Or here's my loophole. I'm going to fly and just never land. I'm going to hover. So I never land.
So would your guys' answer change when you break that bone, it regenerates in like a week? So you're like,
Ooh, that's good.
Do you get to pick
Okay.
which bone breaks?
no, you don't get
No,
to pick.
it's a surprise.
No, because I mean, you could break like your pelvis. You know what I mean? Like, how terrible would that be?
But it's like, okay, but say you travel to like, okay, super speed. Like you said you really wanted to go to Italy, right? That's a free trip to Italy. Right, you could walk on water. You just gotta rest for like a week. But you could rest in like a nice hotel and you got like a month still there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I could just fly to Italy and just throw up.
That's true. That's true. Good answer.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the flying, although it'll be like unnerving. But I don't know, just the thought of a bone breaking. Even that week, I'd just be sitting there in bed like, oh, yeah, I'm in Italy, but all I can see is my hotel room. So I think I have to do the flying.
Yes, that's what I get to. Thank you for our mini segment, guys. We just have a couple more questions for you.
Mm-hmm. What are our questions? Damn. Okay. Can you talk a little, like Chris? Can you talk a little bit about the OCD spiral, the OCD bubble, and it doesn't just relate to OCD. Like I think a lot of mental illnesses, you can get stuck in a negative thought pattern. How do you kind of break out of that and realize, oh wait, this thought pattern, my anxiety, my OCD, my phobia, whatever, it's not good for me. Like it's trying to say it's protecting me, but it's not.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most challenging things is we have our rational brain. It's our brain that we use when we're making plans, like Kristen's plans to Italy, right? That's the part of our brain when we're learning in class. That's the part of our brain that's like focusing and just kind of taking in. Let's say you're at a concert, you're listening to the music and vibing. The problem is when you get in those bubbles, those spirals, like, you know, whatever mental health condition that you have, that rational part of our brain almost gets shut off, right? Like the communication stops, the blood stops, the neurons communicate with each other. It stops, and it gives all of your focus into your fight or flight, the reptilian part of the brain. And that's where your hearing improves, your eyesight improves, you're kind of scanning, you're ready to fight or run. And the problem is a lot of these mental health conditions put us in that fight or flight state when we don't need it. So it's a great state to be in if you need it. So if you're driving and a car almost hits you, you want to be able to react quickly and swerve. Or if somebody's dog's not on a leash and it's looking like it's coming after you, you want to be able to quickly like run in your house and shut the door and lock it. But for generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, for obsessive compulsive disorder, we get into that bubble where everything seems dangerous, everything seems scary, we're in a fight or flight, yet in the here and now, in the present moment, nothing is happening. And so that's really what we're trying to teach people is you are reacting to either something that happened in the past or you're afraid that's happening in the future, but in the current moment you're safe. And so if you could preemptively start to learn like what are your triggers, what sends you into that spiral, when it starts at the beginning, you can react differently. You can jump into treatment instead of jump into compulsions. And if we can get to a point where we're really good at identifying it and not going down at the spiral in the first place, we stay above it. Now, obviously, sometimes that's not going to happen. Sometimes people really do spiral and they're struggling with their phobia. They're struggling with, whatever's bothering them. I think the biggest thing that can help sometimes is getting out of that environment. So a lot of times, restaurants usually used to trigger me a lot for some reason. And I would excuse myself. I'd go to the bathroom, run some cold water on my wrist because it cools my temperature down, go outside and pretend like I was on a phone call, but really I was sort of centering myself. And it's getting myself back into my rational brain to say, okay, Chris, you got tricked. You're freaking out. You don't need to freak out. Go back in there, engage externally, and you're going to have a lot of uncomfortable thoughts and feelings, but you can change your relationship with those. You don't have to focus on them or give in to them. So the strategies are learning and identifying what really triggers you. What are those triggers? And starting to embrace and confront them versus like hiding and running. Because anytime we avoid things that are difficult, at some point it's going to sneak around the corner and get you. So it's facing our fears versus running from them.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I kind of have a story from my own personal experience that kind of relates to stuff. Because a lot of times when we get anxious or when we're deep into a mental health issue, we want to escape. We just don't want to be feeling it. So I started developing the fear of fear, which, like, bro, it's so ridiculous, but it's so funny. And then I started developing the fear of not being able to escape. So, like, combined, that's not very good. So, like, one time, this isn't even a situation where, like, anybody should be anxious, including me. But I went to see one of my players, because I'm a coach. I went to see one of their plays. And I was going to be sitting in the back because I kind of got there late. But then I was invited to sit up in the front with her family and with her singing coach. And then I was like, wait a second, I'm in the front row. Like, if I have to leave, if I get anxious, I'm not going to be able to walk out and, like, go embarrass her entire family and go embarrass her on stage. And I was like, oh no, like, I can't escape. And then they started doing the play. And I was like, oh no, people get really nervous when they're performing. People get stage fright. That makes me scared, because what if they're scared? And then what if they throw up? And oh no, now I'm scared. And I kept going and going and going. And even though, like, I did have that spiral, like, at the end of the day, even if none of your coping mechanisms worked, because I pulled out a lot, and that's fine, like, anxiety can't hurt you, no matter how deep you spiral, no matter how much you go, like, as long as you know what your values are and you stay true to that, like, I didn't end up walking out, even though I was so anxious. I knew that it was really important to me that I stayed, and I did, and it was fine. Like, it was difficult, but I was like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah, and we call that inhibitory learning. So the amazing thing, Sophia, is like you learned, like, hey, although this was a rough situation, it was difficult, I was able to stick with it, get through it, and it was okay. And that will always be a place of learning. And so next time you're in a similar situation, you'll have that past experience to click back to, and you collected data and say, wait a second, I've been through this before. And that's really the idea behind exposure therapy for phobias or exposure with response prevention for OCD, is saying, hey, I'm going to deliberately put myself in a rough situation. So my friends want to go see Freaky Friday. That's the new movie out that my friend wants me to see with her. I'm going to go see that. But instead of, convincing my friends to sit in the very back and I sit on the aisle so I can run out, I'm going to sit in the middle with my friends. And that may be tough and stressful, but I want to get to a place in my life that I could sit wherever I want to sit and not freak out. And so by putting yourself in that position on purpose, you actually start to teach your brain like, hey, sitting wherever I want is safe. And you get more comfortable with the idea of, hey, if people are next to me, I can always ask them to move. I can go out to, like I did in a restaurant. I felt that same feeling. Like, I think that's why I didn't like restaurants. I felt stuck. But I'm like, I can always excuse myself if I need to, but let me try to stick in this restaurant 5 more minutes before I run. So it's creating those personal challenges and goals and really showing yourself that you can trust yourself and that you're much braver and stronger than you think.
A little bit of like a different piece to that. Like for me, like I was terrified of like going into any type of situation where there might be like alcohol or substances. And like my fiance has like a million friends, right? So we're always going to weddings constantly. We go to like 10 weddings a year. It's like insane. I mean, that's over exaggerating, but still. And there's always drinking, like there's always partying. And like I would think to myself, like I used to have like this strain of thinking where it was like, you're different than them. You're not going to be able to hang out with them. They don't like you because you're not drinking. Like it was like very illogical, but it was like I just like beat myself up over and over and over again. And like I gave myself like a little like I don't know, like sort of like strategies of like, okay, well, like A, talking about it really helps, but B, if I'm going to go to these weddings or if I'm going to go to these hangouts, because all of these people are safe people and I adore these people. But my brain was telling me otherwise. It was like, okay, I can go and hang out, but I'm going to drive my car. So I always feel like I have an out. And like knowing that like I had that out, like 99% of the time, like I never actually needed it. I just needed to know that like I was safe enough to participate in that activity. And like that helped build trust within myself, which I thought was really cool.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So I have a question kind of with the spiraling thing. So like how do you guys recommend for people to get out of those spirals? Like when it does get really bad and your mind just keeps going from one thing to another to another to another. Like I think does that have anything to do with like maybe just anxiety or maybe I forgot what's the word called? Like when you're having like a panic attack, like how do you get out of that?
I feel like what's really like, I mean, Chris, like you mentioned, like the cold water on your wrist. Like, I feel like anything like sensory for me is really helpful to like help ground myself. Like, for a while, like I would like go if I were home or like somewhere that I had access to a freezer, like I would like hold ice cubes. Like, it was something that was very jarring, and I don't like the cold. And it was like, I literally like forced myself to focus on it. I also would do like my therapist a long time ago, like she taught me about like doing like mindful walks. And, if it's like safe enough for me to do so, like I would literally go on a walk and depending on what I saw, I would create a story in my head on like what it was that I was seeing. So like if I saw a squirrel, if I saw a tree, if I saw a person walking by, like instead of creating like a scary story or like a story that like brightened me or made me more anxious, like I would literally create like something that was funny or something that was goofy. And like I would sort of like force myself to do that. And even if it was like 5 minutes of like existing in this story, it kind of like helped like derail that train of like, okay, like I'm not like at like a 7 anymore. Maybe I'm at like a 4.
Yeah, I would say it's a little difficult to answer because it sometimes depends on the mental health condition. But one thing that Kristen talks about is like senses. And for instance, there's a mental health condition known as dissociative disorders, but there's depersonalization and derealization. And depersonalization is where someone doesn't really feel connected to their body. It's an intense anxiety response or derealization. They don't feel like connected with the world around them. And sometimes what helps is like strong scents. So sometimes it could be smelling something strong or popping in like a warhead or one of those strong mints to kind of shock you back to life. Or for me, a lot of the ways that I handled my general anxiety was through temperature. Anytime I got really hot, I noticed that I had more panic and more anxiety. So typically I would get in my car and blast air conditioning on my face or rub ice on my wrist or something to cool me down. I think a change of location can help as well. So sometimes if we're really, really stuck, I remember one time I was getting stuck with laundry with OCD because of contamination. And I was trying to do the same load of laundry over and over. And I was like spending 3 hours washing the same item because it didn't feel clean enough. And I finally just said, okay, I need to stop laundry. I'm going to leave the house, go get a breakfast burrito along the beach, go to Barnes & Noble, read a book, go to the gym, get a little exercise, and then come back home and try it again. And what happens, by the time I got home, I was in a different mindset and I was like, okay, now I can approach it and use my tools. So sometimes if your tools aren't working, a change of situation, tapping into those sensory things can help. There's a treatment called dialectical behavioral therapy. Most people know it as DBT. It really helps with emotional regulation and it really helps with some of the things we've been talking about, like that box breathing, changing your temperature. Sometimes if somebody's having a panic attack, if they get movement, get going, our body naturally has us sweat and cool down and slows down our breathing. So I think what is good is, whether it's working with a therapist or sometimes there's a lot of things online people can access, find what works for you. And like Kristen said earlier, sometimes that'll work for a while and it might kind of die out and you look at something else. And then lastly, I say sometimes it's just talking to someone. A lot of times with my mom, she had a really good understanding of OCD and BDD and depression. And sometimes I was like, Mom, I just need to talk it out. And just by talking to her, a lot of times I'd recognize the error patterns in my thinking. And I'm like, okay, I'm totally in a spiral right now, but I realize where it's coming from. Let me take a different approach. This is just OCD trying to trick me or something like that. So sometimes connecting with someone that has an understanding of what you're going through.
Right, because I agree, because even recently, well, not recently, but like maybe like 2 weeks ago, right, I like started having a spark, because it can even start for something so simple, right, because I needed to select, so I'm still haven't even figured out now, I need to choose like a computer for school, right, but I was like, how can I choose a computer if I don't even know my major, and how can I find my major if I don't know enough information, and if I don't have enough information, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be a failure. Oh, okay, school's starting, so like, and it was like a loop on loop, and now I just realized, I was like, hold up, I just need to stop thinking. Like, even like sometimes I feel like our mind gets so ahead of it, and like I think I was just going at a 10. I like just had to like leave my room and just throw on something and just kind of think about it, and you could always like this, like really stopping and pausing even when it's hard, like realizing, okay. And it was like 3:00 in the morning. I was like, why am I thinking about a computer? Literally. Or like, why am I thinking about this at like 4 o'clock in the morning? Right. So I just had to like really take that breather and kind of make yourself like aware, like kind of with the sensory, like, okay, I need to feel something. I can't like keep living in this moment. It really does help. So I feel like so much time our mind gets way ahead of what we're actually like there in the moment, kind of.
Yeah.
There's also like not like a whole lot we can do just by thinking. Like thinking is different than doing. And like I think if I just think about it, I'll solve it. And it's like there's literally nothing I can do right now. Like I just need to say that out loud.
Right. That's what it took.
Yeah, what I was going to say, Madison, is what you did is what we call drop the rope technique, right? Like sometimes you're playing tug of war and you finally realize it's not going anywhere, so you just let go and walk away. And that's what we have to do sometimes. And I always tell people there's 3 really good questions you could ask yourself if it's time to drop the rope and walk away. First step is this the right mindset to make this decision? So, would I want my Uber driver to be in this mindset when they were driving me? Or would I want a surgeon to be operating on me? You don't want your surgeon to be up at 3 a.m. spiraling to operate on you. So this is not the right time to decide majors and your future in computers. So it's saying, let me delay this and wait until I'm in a fresh mindset. Second question to ask yourself is like, do I have any new information? So what I mean by that is like, they don't open up a cold case just cause. They open it because there's new DNA stuff or somebody's come out and confessed. So if you've already done all the research on a computer and there's no new information, it's like, okay, I got to just make a decision and take action because more thinking isn't going to help. And then third question, is this helpful? Is it getting you closer to deciding your major in your laptop? or is it just spiraling and making that decision harder? So sometimes if the answer is this isn't the right mindset, no new information, and this isn't helping at all, it's like, okay, like Kristen said, it's time to get out of thinking mode and take action. And I will buy a computer, and look, down the road, if it ends up being the wrong one, I could sell it, use the money for a new one. Like, trust yourself that you'll figure it out down the road, and you don't need to come up with it right away.
Yeah. And like, kind of going off of your analogies, because I have a phobia, I have a metaphobia, which is fear of throwing up. But sometimes if I'm stuck in a spiral, or if I'm up at like 2 a.m. thinking about, bro, what if I get food poisoning tomorrow? I think about like, okay, hold on, let me take another phobia, like fear of mascots or fear of needles. Like, right now in this moment, I'm not worried about if a mascot is gonna come up to me tomorrow when I'm on the street. Like, that's just not something I'm realistically thinking about. So why would I do it with throwing up? And so then I'm like, okay, I'm like just being irrational.
Right, just like realizing, kind of leveling yourself, like what's really going on for no reason.
Yeah.
I like really looking yourself in the mirror, like, okay, let's chill, let's chill.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Right, and another question. So, kind of steering the way, like just a couple more questions, right? So, like, I know a lot of people struggle with like expressing themselves, or like even how we're like our spirals, or like really putting how your emotions, like kind of like taking it out your mind. Like, what's the best way do you guys recommend to express yourself? Like, what are some expressions that you have? Like, I heard you talk about like you like some type of karate too. You did, Chris?
Martial arts, yeah.
Yeah, martial arts. So, like, what do you guys recommend, or what are some things to do?
Yeah, I think, we are so afraid sometimes to express emotions. We're told not to be emotional and stuff like that. But what our emotions really are is it's our way of our body to kind of release emotions. That's why, like, if we're grieving a loss of someone, crying, having memories and talking about fun times about, them, being sad that they're not there. I mean, when we really express our emotions, it helps us process and get through hard times. So if you're not comfortable with expressing emotions always externally, it could be in your room. It could be writing it out. Sometimes writing a letter to somebody that's hurt you, even if you never send it or give it to them, it's like getting those feelings and getting those thoughts down on paper. Journaling is an awesome way to process what you're feeling and what you're going through. Sometimes it's literally, I have clients that will take their phone and do voice memos and talk out how they feel and cry on their phone and, but never let anybody listen to it. I think for me also is like, physical exercise has always been a way for me to like exert all the like intense emotions I have. So whether it's martial arts, which has a mindfulness component to it, hiking, which has a nature element to it, walking my friend's dogs, which has an animal component to it. There's always been ways that I've tried to express myself, even if it's not overtly crying or laughing, at least doing something that's helping me sort of, regulate my emotions, etc. So I would say there's a lot of ways to do it. People can find what makes them comfortable, but the one thing I always shine away from is holding stuff in, because pushing emotions down, holding it in, not talking to someone else, it's going to come out worse eventually. It's, it's like pushing one of those balls down in a pool, and eventually the beach ball pops up. That's what happens if we don't express our emotions in a healthy way.
Yeah, I mean, I piggyback all of those things. Like, for a lot of years, and even still, like, my first instinct or my second instinct is to like shove it down and like put it in a box and not open the box ever. But that box can only be so full and it will explode. And then that's usually what I call like the crisis moment where, all of a sudden it's like a Tuesday night and I'm like wondering why, like I went from eating grapes on the floor to like sobbing. It's like it had nothing to do with like eating grapes. It had everything to do with the things that I had been shoving down like the past like months or even years. And I think like the number one thing like with like expression is, for me at least, is like consistency, or like semi-consistency. Like and like being okay with like whatever the expression is, like I don't know, like I love writing poetry and it's not going to be like the best piece of poetry on earth every time, right? And like that's okay. Like it's just like getting out what I need to get out. Or there have absolutely been times where I've been at the gym like lifting super heavy and like crying in between sets, like openly, and it's like that's just where I'm at, and like giving myself that grace. Like, I'm somebody that is definitely like very expressive externally, But, as long as like I'm not causing harm to myself or others, like as long as I can express it, I will give myself the opportunity to.
Definitely.
You have one more question you want to ask?
Let me think. Let me search my brain.
We could.
Oh,
No, you can go.
I was just gonna say we can circle back actually, because last episode I forgot to ask a question to Chris. We were talking about some of the myths surrounding mental health, and how there's a lot of misinformation around it, and a lot of people think that people with mental health struggles are either incompetent or they're really unstable, they're dangerous, they're volatile. So what are kind of your guys' experience with that, and why is it not necessarily true?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest myths is that people, let's say with schizophrenia, for instance, or people with other mental health conditions are dangerous. Sometimes people that have substance use disorder, right? People think that they're dangerous or scary or not stable or untrustworthy. But we have a lot of data and a lot of research that shows actually people experiencing mental health conditions are much more likely to be victims, unfortunately, of crimes and be hurt and be taken advantage of. And so I don't know where this myth came from. And I think that's why it's so important that we make sure that we support media that portrays people with mental health conditions in an accurate way. I've worked with clients that have both OCD and schizophrenia that are managing the schizophrenia with medication. And they have been some of the most like kind, gentle souls. I have an uncle with an intellectual disability, and he used to work for a grocery store and like bag groceries, and people loved him. People would come and like wait in his line to have him do it. But in media, sometimes it portrays people like that as brutish. So I think it's so unfortunate that a lot of times what we portray in the media is just inaccurate. So we have to start to understand that people with schizophrenia and other mental health conditions are actually more likely to be victims, and why it's so important that we have different advocates out there to really support people with any mental health disorder and really get them the resources, support, and protection they need.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some of the myths, specifically around like substance use disorder, is that like you need to look a certain way or be a certain way or act a certain way or come from a certain place in order to struggle with substance use disorder. I always had like, and that's why stigma is so like dangerous, right? Because like I always thought that I had to be somebody without a home, somebody without a job, like had kids to lose or a car to lose or a job to lose. But like I was 17 years old living with my dad, and was using in a upper middle class neighborhood every single day in like my bedroom, right? And I thought because like I wasn't using like IV drugs that like I wasn't somebody that belonged in a rehab or belonged in a 12-step meeting or in therapy. But like, I learned over time that like it's never too late or too early to get help. We don't necessarily need to be like at these crossroads of like, I feel like I want to take my own life, or I feel like that I can't keep living. Um, I found that like there are a lot like people that struggle with substance use disorder like come from all different walks of life, and I just wish that I had known sooner, because maybe I wouldn't have beaten myself up for as long as I did, or maybe I wouldn't have like hidden in that sort of like shame bubble of like nobody's like me. Because believe it or not, like even many years later, I had a good friend of mine growing up, like her mom messaged me on Facebook, and I used to hang out with her all the time, and she was like, "Hey, I've 5 years sober," and I had no idea that she even struggled, right? So
Wow.
like we never really know who is struggling or what's going on with an individual. So, it's like we can't always read people.
Mhm. Yeah, no,
Thank
that's a really good message. Like, because yeah, a lot of times people try to say mental health or mental illness looks one way, OCD is one
Mm.
way, eating disorder is one way, all of this stuff, and it does like further trap you in your mental health disorder because you're like, well, that's not me, or oh my gosh, that is me. I'm like this forever. So yeah, thank you so much for being really open about that, you guys, and yeah, just
Right, like I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, I wish like how you said, really mental health could really look any way. It can look like anyone, any age, any gender, any like ethnicity too. And like, I feel like if more people knew that is such a common thing. It's really, that's kind of like why our podcast is titled Uncontrollable, because it is uncontrollable. It could be in this person, that person, but it's just about us talking about it more, being open about it, and not being like afraid to admit it. Because I know it's something, but it's something you work towards, and I feel like we should all work together as a society to get there. So thank you for that. So, once again, I'm Madison Mays.
And I'm Sophia Lee.
Brought to you by Cloudcast Media.
Today we talked with Chris Tronson, a licensed marriage and family therapist. And we also talked with Kristen from Minding Mind, just a really amazing organization for mental health advocacy.
And we hope you've had fun. And remember, don't be afraid to explore the uncontrollable. Thank you.
Thank you so much.